going on, everybody? We're back with another recap of the week. Welcome to Corner to Copa. I'm here with my co-host, Coach. What's going on, man?
Not much, my dude. Not much. I know we were able to catch a game in person together last week, get a little up close and personal on the squad, and a little bit of a rough week, including the way they ended yesterday. And yeah, we'll see what they got in store for us here over the next 30 days or so.
Absolutely. And the game we went to on Tuesday was a close game that ended up going into extra innings, I believe, that we ended up losing. So that was a series that we lost 1-2. And Sunday, we concluded another series with the Astros, which we also went down 1-2. Almost got no hit on Sunday. Wenzel Perez was able to break up the no hitter, and we were able to salvage one run, giving us. We got shut out on Friday. We had a offensive explosion, and in typical fashion, came right back down to normal with a one run effort. But yeah, Riley Green had 2 home runs in his first 2 at bats. Cole Keith had a nice game, went 4 for 6, had a home run, and I think Alex McKinstry and Akil Baddoo walked in 2 consecutive at bats in the same inning. It was very, very wild to say the very least. But yeah, the Tigers have not won a series since the Texas series back a few series ago, but we are now 3 games under 500 on the season. 3 games under 500 on the season, 34-37, 18-18 at home, and we are five and a half games out of the wild card, as well as 11 out of first place in our division. What did you take away from the you can talk about the game on Tuesday. You can just talk about just the week in general.
Yeah, I mean, we'll touch on the game we went to. We had bases were loaded for Riley. He hit a heck of a shot out to probably the deepest part in the ballpark, right center there. We used to call Miggy territory over there, but triple with a throwing error, scored him, cleaned the bases. But on the other side, Maeda labored mightily. I mean, it looked like there were some close calls that Larry Vanover, the home plate umpire for that game, wasn't necessarily giving him. But at the same time, he prior to coming back out to the 4th inning, where he had logged damn near almost 80 pitches at that point, he had a 1-to-1 strike to walk ratio, which is absolutely abysmal for a major league starter to have. Usually spells recipe for disaster. And it's been a constant theme for him, other than maybe a few starts, an overwhelming majority of his starts. He can barely get to the 5th inning or through the 5th inning, throwing 80 to 95 pitches, which you might expect from a younger guy, maybe first, second year, full time, still finding his rhythm, his cadence, being introduced to new major league ballparks. All the aesthetics can kind of change things a little bit mentally. But I honestly, and in simple, I'm over Maeda. I'm ready to bring in another guy that can stabilize that spot in the rotation a little bit and not necessarily give away games anymore. Because frankly, we just can't afford to give away games in our rotation if it's not injury related. So, but as far as the week, I mean, it's been pretty standard for these guys. Like you said, they explode for one game in a series. Another one might be tight. It's low scoring, but they also aren't scoring. So, I've updated their 5-run rule, kind of in the rule I've had the last handful of weeks here. When they score 5 runs, as of today, entering tonight's game, and they score 5 or more, they're 26-4. That's incredible.
That's crazy.
When they don't score 5 runs, when they score less, they are 10-31. It is probably the most polarizing stat you can find on this team right now. And I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the use of their bullpen. We've touched on it for the last few episodes about the long relief guys. Faedo's now on the IL. Holton had missed a couple games prior to that. Their ERA, bullpen ERA, went from top 5 or 6 in the first 30, 35 days. They're not even the top 15 anymore. They're now in the bottom half of Major League Baseball, and largely just because their starters have labored a lot, have had labored in their starts to get through 5, 6 innings and third time through the lineup. So this bullpen has logged a lot of innings. A lot of guys have seen a lot of playing time already, so it's starting to catch up to them at this point. And I don't really know where their options are going to be coming from now. Now that guys are starting to get hurt, guys need days off, but I don't know. We'll see.
Absolutely. And yes, as far as Maeda goes, he already doesn't have powerful stuff. So when you struggle to control on top of all of that, it just creates a recipe for a disaster. Um, there were a lot of questions about the moves we did make and the moves that we didn't make, and I think for the most part, free agency wise, I think it's looked at a lot of the decisions that Scott Harris has made has actually been decent decisions. Giro Urshela has been pretty good on both ends, defensively and offensively. Mark Hanna has been a solid, decent guy. He's been asked to play in the middle of the lineup, which is not exactly ideal for him, but I think he's taking that in stride as well. And of course, we're definitely going to talk about Flaherty this year. I think he's over. I mean, we knew that he was a Cy Young candidate a couple years ago, but I think that they were just hoping to fill a slot with a veteran guy, and I think he's overly exceeded expectations thus far. He's got his ERA nearly down to below 3, and he's 4-4 on the year. But he's having, as far as the strikeout numbers, he's having a nearly all-star type efforts so far this year. So as much as we do get on Scott Harris, we also have to give credit where it's due for most of the decisions he's made. Obviously, Maeda being a decision that ultimately it's you really wonder how much longer he's going to last before they give up on him. But I don't know, yeah, it's tough to say if they're going to pull the trigger and make any rash decisions as far as that's concerned. But we are going to take a quick break and get back to it in a second. All right. And now it is time for us to discuss any of the roster moves that have happened thus far. Coach, what you got?
Yes, they had a little bit of action, mostly in the earlier part of the week. Some were made during the week, but retroactive a few days earlier. So they on the 10th they signed free agent right-hand relief pitcher Miguel Diaz to a minor league deal. There was no team designation yet in terms of where he'd go. I'm assuming it's going to be Toledo or Double-A. On the 11th, obviously they called up Ryan Kreidler after putting Baez on the 10-day IL with a very similar, almost exact injury that Kerry Carpenter has. Instead of a fracture, it was more of an inflammation of the lumbar spine area. So I know he received a shot, I believe, in the last few days. So they're just waiting to see how he reacts and how he continues to recover from that. Retroactive to the 9th. Alex Faedo, retroactive to the 5th, was placed in the 15-day IL with, I believe, a hip issue. With that, I think might be the most impactful one so far, just purely because he's logged so many innings out of the long relief and a couple other late game situations that he has pitched in. And on the 13th, they also signed free agent relief pitcher Austin Schulfer to a minor league deal, similar to Diaz. No team was given in terms of assignment at this time.
All right, and let's get into the talk down on the farm. Not a whole lot of, as far as anything new to report. Meadows hit another home run, I believe, on Saturday. He's continuing to do well. I think it's just a matter of time before the Tigers make another move to possibly bring him back in replace of probably Akil Badu, who's not really providing too much more than the occasional walk. He's been fairly solid defensively, but he's not really getting on base unless they're pitching around him. It kind of makes you wonder why they do. I mean, he's got an eye that is comparable to Mark Cannon, where if it's not within the strike zone, he's not going to chase very often. I don't know if I would be walking him 2 times an inning, given the contact, or the chance. I guess there's a chance that he can do some damage, but the average doesn't suggest that he's that dangerous. But yeah, Meadows has continued to mash. He's pretty much hit since he's gone down. He's going to bring some defense that we desperately need, um, as well as some speed as well. So that's what's going on as far as Meadows is concerned. McConaughey and Clark both hit. They played a doubleheader on Sunday, making up a game, and McConaughey and Clark both hit 2-run home runs. So they're continuing to excel down there. Um, and it's just a matter of time before they move up through the system. Hayu Lee actually got hit in the head with a pitch early on in the week, but he was able to bounce back and continue his success hitting as well in the AAA system. Um, and Matt Manning got a win the other day as well. I believe that was on Saturday. So um, that's pretty much. I want to say. Well, we looked at some Torkelson stats. Um, he's doing okay. He's hitting about 276. I would like to see his walk to strikeout ratio. We kind of talked about as well. Not looking great considering the decline in pitching talent between AAA and the pros. But I think we both are in agreement that this is kind of he's on a long track as far as getting back to the major leagues at this point. I think he's going to have to show a lot more before he gets consideration for that. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much the highlights of what we have going down on the farm. As far as the good, the bad, and the ugly, Matt Vierling, he is. I feel like he produces in spurts. I mean, he had a pretty solid week. He'll just tends to have a good day here and there. He'll also go over here and there, but he's been a pretty solid constant for us. Obviously, Riley Green is starting to get back into the near all-star caliber level that he's capable of. He had 2 home runs on Saturday. Um, as far as the bad, the bullpen has. I feel like the bullpen has been getting exposed a little bit more. Engler got touched up pretty bad the other day, but we're obviously dealing with some injuries and some call downs. Alex Lang is in AAA. Alex Faedo is currently on the IL. Um, but yeah, not bullpen's not too bad, but it's starting to go through its decline. And the ugly, I was going to leave that to you. I mean, I know your boy AJ Hinch. Yeah, what is it about AJ Hinch that you just can't, you know?
I like me stuttering right now, like you just heard. Something's got to change. We made fun of the comment that he made when they got swept at home by Kansas City. reporter said, didn't seem like you guys were that competitive. They scored 9 runs, literally 3 runs every game, and they gave up 24 runs in those 3 games. And the fact that he took offense to that and kind of snapped back at it, oh, we were. I don't know what game or series you were watching, AJ, but sure wasn't the same one that we all watched, where he got basically steamrolled by a division opponent. But between him and his staff, this team with the younger guys, not named Canna and Gio and Ibanez, guys with lengthy MLB service time, guys that have 5 or less years in general, not necessarily full-time years. Our core guys, they're struggling to hit consistently. They're struggling to field. I mean, hell, Baez and Cole Keith have 15 of the team's 44 total errors, which comes out to, in the 71 games they played, roughly, that's over an error and a half per game. Dude, that's like a high school varsity team. I don't know how these guys that are professional athletes are making that many errors, and it's, I guess it wouldn't necessarily be that bad if it was spread around a bit more, but that's your middle infield, and McKinstry, when he does play as a backup, is right behind him with 5 of his own. So there you go. You've got 20 of 44 errors with your number 1 and 2 middle infielder and your number 1 sub behind him. Obviously, they're not hitting for any power, but that's more of how the team was kind of put together in the offseason.
Right.
So obviously not really going to put that on the coaching staff. But, where's the urgency? Where's the sense of pride? Yeah, okay, kiss the division right now. As it is today, kiss the division goodbye. Right now, 11 games back. That's not even, shouldn't be a thought in anyone's mind. They're 3 games out of the last wild card somehow. And there's still time to get this turned around in a more truly competitive manner. And if he's not willing to let go one of his coaches, whether it's hitting or fielding, and frankly, there's no one listed on the team's website for fielding at all, then I'm done with AJ. This is not working. You've got we're only a few injuries or DFAs from some of the veterans, if it were to happen, away from literally becoming the Detroit Mudhens. We have almost the bulk of our prospects up at the end of last year that were put into the farm system in terms of how they evaluate parent teams' total organizational prospect list, and most of them are already up. So I'm fed up with it. If it's not one of its coaching staff, it's got to be him. But based on the comments we're hearing from Harris, they're just kind of ho hum. It's just another day, another dollar. No, we've been in a rebuild for 8 years, and obviously it's our first year without Miggy, but it's been 8 years. 8 years since we've been in any type of relevancy in Major League Baseball. And now we're about to whiff on Torkelson, which, frankly, in my opinion, he's no longer a Tiger.
Oh wow.
Unless it's an injury-related reason, there's no reason to bring him up. On the numbers that we saw, 1 home run, and the bulk of his hits at 286 average are mostly singles. 4 doubles, 1 home run. Everything else is a single. We can call up a guy from Single A, Max Clark, who could produce better than he is at this point. I'm sorry, but right now we've whiffed on him. The last successful high-end pick that we had that actually transformed into something just good, not even great, but it was great, was Verlander.
Oh wow.
So with that said too, it's like, well, what do you do next? You may have to trade Skubal. I know it's going to be a very unpopular take, but if you're not going to spend money and you're going to drag your feet with this organization, this team, and trying to turn around and fairly, I think Kansas City might be having a little bit of an anomaly year, honestly. I mean, Cleveland was really good last year. So was Minnesota.
Minnesota was good last year. We finished ahead of Cleveland.
Right. But it really leaves you scratching your head thinking, what are they not doing because it's clearly something they're not doing. That's keeping them in the same spot that they've been in for the last 4 or 5 years with largely the same group of core guys who are not panning out. That's not named Tarek Skubal. So that is the ugly part of it.
Okay, yeah, that's ugly. We're gonna take a break, and we're gonna get back with some more topics. All right, we are back, and you touched on a couple different things as far as making some trades and us, certainly having some time to make something happen, but us, getting close to a stretch of make or break point in the season. You talked about Skubal. We touched on Skubal a little bit, but I wanted to talk about Flaherty. As I said earlier in the show, he's 4-4 right now. His ERA is 3.01. He's having a nearly all-star type effort year. Minus a fair share of run support, I would assume, which most of our pitchers have had issues with outside of Tarek Skubal, ironically. But with him being on a 1-year deal and him, probably going for his last big payday coming up this year, what do you think we should do, if anything, with him at the trade deadline? And do you feel that there is reasonable value that we can get back from him as far as right now and or just mid to high end prospects?
I think if you're looking at that, the one question that I would pose would be, where are you in the wild card race? Now, if you start to fall back further and further as we get into July and the end of this month from the wild card, and all of a sudden there's 5 other teams ahead of you trying to get into that last wild card spot, then yeah, I think you look at possibly trading him unless there's a mutual interest of him wanting to stay for a few years more, which I think I would be open to, at least a discussion at the bare minimum, and get a sense of where he's at mentally in terms of his future and where he sees himself if it's potentially still here in Detroit. Because, like you said, he's had a whale of a year. Honestly, I think we kind of thought maybe Maeda would have a good year because he had actually a pretty good year last year in Minnesota. So I think that's why we kind of took a little bit of a flyer on him. And Flaherty, he's had some really great years, especially down in St. Louis. But, obviously he struggled a little bit prior to last year, and he's getting a little older. So obviously there's some more hesitation to give someone like that in that age range a big contract and not be nervous about what may or may not happen. But look, he's earned it. I mean, and to me too, like Reese Olson was in the same boat. Doesn't get run support at all. His win-loss record is totally skewed against what he's actually done in terms of numbers and on the mound for all of his starts. I mean, if we were scoring a little bit more runs a game, obviously our win-loss record would be a little bit better. I mean, all 3 of those guys would be up there in terms of potential all-star voting. Skubal right now, obviously, shoe-in, if not almost a front runner to be the starter for the American League at this point. But yeah, I would be interested in opening him up for an extension for a couple of years. But as of right now, if I could help it, Maeda's not on the team next year, regardless that he's got a 2-year deal. You cut him, you say bye-bye, you leave another spot. But yeah, I would, if that 3-man top part of the rotation has been very, very good for us, despite the lack of run support overall for all 3 pitchers.
Right, and you talked about Skubal having the opportunity to start in the All-Star game, but is there anybody that you can think of? Obviously, we found out that none of our outfielders were in the running for All-Star. But is there anybody who do you feel was the closest consideration to becoming an all-star?
I mean, for a while, we thought it would have been Riley Green for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
he had some great defensive plays early on. He was mashing the ball up and down the lineup in different spots in the order. Um, Obviously, most of it were coming from leadoff. AJ tried to put him in some power situations, didn't quite work out. But I think because of his gradual decline in his poor May overall, we'll call it what it is. He had a sub 200 batting average in May and lacked power. He had some here and there, but it just was few and far between. But I mean, Matt Vierling is putting together overall a quality season. If there was any other uh, person right now that we were talking about that wasn't Riley, I really do think it's Vierling because, like you said, it's been in spurts, but I feel like he has overall a good series. I don't really think he's had too many series where he's gone almost completely, ghosted. Like you would expect Baez for the most part to, if it's unless it's a 4-game series, he's going to have 3 games that are absolute dog water where it's just okay. We're giving away 3 outs in this game out of his lineup. One he might walk or get on base somehow. No, Vierling is kind of doing it all. He's playing all over in the outfield. He's covering ground. He's making good plays. He's timely hits. He's hitting for power, both sides, left and right, in terms of opposite field and pulling. Um, it's been needed because the days that Riley's been down, he's been up, and almost kind of vice versa. And I think in a way, that was kind of the picture of that outfield with Parker Meadows initially, and then Kerry Carpenter in the mix as well. I mean, if you get two out of the four, or even hell, 3 out of 4 of those guys, clicking with the bat on any given series, that's tough to overcome with guys that are already producing at a fairly good level. And Gio and Ibanez and guys that pop up every now and again. Baez with runners in scoring position. Now the team looks a little different from a lineup perspective, but that hasn't quite happened yet. But Vierling has been the guy, in my opinion, especially over the last 35 days since Riley's kind of fallen off in terms of I think's had a pretty good year in terms of if we were to talk consideration.
Absolutely, yeah. And you covered the Vierling part really, really well. If there's one thing that he's been versatile defensively. He's played in at least 3 different positions: corner, outfield, center field, and third base. But if there's one thing that we were asking about him going into this year was for him to hit for more power and to hit from the pull field. Just to give you an idea of what he's done, he had 10 home runs and 44 RBIs all of last year in 134 games. Through this point in the middle of June, he already has 9 to the 10 he had last year and 30 RBIs to the 44 he had last year. So he's gonna blow those numbers out of the water. Let's see what the projected. I think there was some projected stats.
And let's be real too. He's doing it in a pitcher's ballpark at Comerica.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and yeah, he's projected.
We've heard past outfielder, Nick Castellanos give the owner, if you will, or engineer of the stadium a lot of shit for making it so big and complaining, but he's been doing it. So
yeah, I mean, granted, a lot of those home runs have been those little liners that barely scrape the top of the barely scrape the top of the wall, but we will certainly take what we can get. Sometimes just that minor adjustment is enough to get the job done. So I have nothing bad to say about Vierling this year, because with Torkelson and a couple of guys that we were banking on going into the year, going through their decline, he has stepped up and been a factor for us this year. Let's get to the last break, and then we're going to talk the schedule and close things out here. All right. So who do we have coming up? I don't think the schedule is going to get any easier for us. But what we got going on?
Yeah, quick note before we kind of dive in for the next week to 10 days or so. Between June 11th and July 14th, this team is going to have 2 scheduled days off over, 34, 35 odd days into mid-July. So given where they're at right now in the division and the wild card, and I know we spoke offline briefly before we jumped into the show tonight, but I really do think that this is truly their sink or swim stretch here. Um, like you said, doesn't get any easier. So they start tonight in Atlanta here shortly in about 20 minutes. Olsen will go off against Max Fried. Atlanta's without Acuna, which is a big loss. They've been struggling a bit as of late. And, they dropped two two series in a row against Washington. So maybe they're not Washington maybe isn't a fluke because they were kind of hot, but right now, if the season were to end today, Marcell Ozuna would win the Triple Crown for the NL. He's
That's the first
leading
time
all
since
three
Cabrera.
categories. Well, yeah, it would be, but in turn, it would be the first NL Triple Crown winner in quite some time. But he's on a tear after down year last year, so no Acuna doesn't matter. That team is still loaded. So they got 3 in Atlanta. Off day before they come home for 2 series, weekend series against the Sox. Well needed. I hope to God we take 2 out of 3 because the last time we said we needed them to kick some butt in the division, they got absolutely embarrassed at home by the Royals.
Oh,
So I'm not going to necessarily hold my breath on that, but 3 against Chicago. They turn around and invite the Phillies into town for 3. Uh, before they head out on a long West Coast trip, 3 in LA against the Angels. They make that 4 games against the Angels before they have their last off day, and then they continue the long, long road trip with the Twins, Reds, and then they close out that 34-day stretch with Cleveland and then the Dodgers. So literally only one bad team in that stretch, being the White Sox. All the other teams are right around that record or better, with a couple powerhouses in there.
all right. So I know you had some grievances to air. I think you got a lot of it during the ugly section. But was there anything else going on that you needed to get off your chest before we get up out of here?
No, I mean this team is really young. I think we knew that heading in, even with Parker and Torkelson on the 25 man roster. But it's turning into more growing pains, some frustrations with the fans, and I'm starting to hear it more on some local media outlets. The frustration and even the Scooble thing about do we keep are they going to pay him, or if not, then I say we trade him at the latest this offseason because he's already had one Tommy John. He's 25. He might get one. This might propel him into one massive, we'll call it a max deal. We'll say like maybe a 7-year deal, 6 to 8 year deal, somewhere in there. Whatever the number might be, I have no idea what it'd be right now. But obviously, if he continues at the pace at the end of the year and he gets at least some votes for Cy Young if he doesn't win it, obviously that's going to propel him even further in that regard. So if they're not going to pay him, then Lord knows I don't want to see him expire in his contract. He walks and we get nothing. That would absolutely be the worst case situation for the organization going forward. Yeah, one other thing to note, still baseball related. I'm looking at some of the College World Series stuff that kicked off this past weekend, and I happened to come across a clip. I think it was a Texas A&M and Florida potentially, whoever they played. I think it was game 1. I think it was Florida. There are a couple of Aggie fans that were absolutely, if you're chirping a player because of personal beef to get under their skin, look, we all went to college. Heck, we went as Boston Lunatics to some hockey games, and there were some pretty pretty crazy stuff that we heard, but it was about the players. So but what I've heard and read was that these two guys looked like they may have been a little inebriated, but that's not an excuse. Were absolutely harassing the entire Florida bench over the death of their bat boy, and they were escorted by force out of the stadium by Omaha police, charged, released on bond. Look, some of you may or may know. I know a lot of like Foster and some of our other close friends. I've been an umpire for a long time now. We can take a lot of stuff that's directed at yourself. That's one thing, but to go after someone like that, there's no room for that. Baseball aside, that's bullshit. And we've seen more and more type of fan interactions, and even our own Pistons. I know this is a baseball podcast, but we saw what happens when people start yelling at ex-GM Weaver now. And it's becoming more prevalent. It's not just limited to one or two sports. We see it in football, and NFL games, college games. It's crazy, but I know it was a little bit of a sidetrack there, but that's over the line, and you're paying to watch them. You wanna say stuff like that, stick to your Twitter troll thumbs.
Yeah,
But I digress.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a thin line between some good heckling and just crossing over into something that's a little too personal, and I think that's across the board pretty obvious that one's just like, all right, you're doing a whole lot. So
yeah, I mean, look, you're gonna get
for.
criticized for performances as a player, as an athlete. That comes to the territory. Same thing with being a coach or even official for any sport. You're gonna get criticized, but that's part of it. You accept it, and you have thick skin. And you ignore it for the most part. But yeah, that's well beyond the line. That pretty much speaks for itself. But yeah, I wanted to briefly touch a note on that because frankly, there's really no room for that especially at the college level. I know these guys are starting to get money now, so starting to get paid a little bit here and there, but that doesn't give the general opposing fan the right to come after someone for a loss of life. I mean, that's
Deep.
Yep.
But yeah, this will wrap up this episode of Corner to Copa. Be on the lookout. I have a new segment that I'm thinking about putting out, just doing some player profiles on some of our players and discussing some advanced analytics and what their future looks like as a Detroit Tiger. But we're gonna pilot that pretty soon. So be on the lookout for that. And you'll be the first to see it if you're subscribed to Corner to Copa. And for all our audio people, if you would like to watch the visual version of the show, subscribe to Bleachers and Speakers on YouTube. We out of here.
Yes, sir.
It was frozen. Why did it freeze?